The gate was sealed before sunrise, and that single act changed everything. No warning, no call, just steel chains and a bright orange notice flapping in the cold air. Evan stood still on the gravel road, staring at the locked cabin gate that had welcomed his family for 3 generations. The Homeowners Association claimed the cabin violated community access rules, but something about the timing felt wrong. This story would reveal how one quiet landowner uncovered a truth the HOA never expected. The cabin sat deep in pine forest, far from the manicured lawns of the new development downhill. Evan rarely dealt with the HOA, assuming their authority stopped where the pavement ended. But overnight, that assumption shattered. The notice cited unauthorized private obstruction, accusing Evan of blocking community access. Ironically, it was the HOA that had blocked him. He called the number listed. Voicemail. He emailed. Automated reply. The silence felt deliberate. Neighbors whispered that the HOA wanted control of the land, not compliance. Evan walked the dirt road slowly, tracing tire marks that told a story of heavy vehicles using the path recently. His path, as the sun climbed higher, Evan realized something unsettling. The road they sealed wasn't just his entrance. It was the only road. And if that was true, then the HOA had just locked themselves into a mistake far bigger than they knew. By noon, frustration turned into clarity, and clarity turned into resolve. Evan didn't argue online or shout at meetings. He researched quietly. He drove into town and pulled old property maps from county records, yellowed pages that smelled of dust and ink. Each line confirmed what his grandfather once said casually: that road was ours before the houses existed. At the time, Evan never imagined those words would matter. Now they meant everything. The HOA had grown fast, swallowing nearby land with confidence, assuming compliance followed concrete. They paved driveways, installed signs, and enforced rules aggressively. What they never did was verify ownership beyond their borders. Evan's cabin land had been ignored, dismissed as irrelevant wilderness, but the maps were clear. The access road crossed Evan's property for over half a mile. No easement. No shared use agreement. Nothing legal tying it to the HOA. Evan felt his pulse slow as certainty replaced anger. He returned to the gate, touching the chain lightly, almost respectfully. He wasn't angry anymore. He was curious. Curious how far the HOA would go before realizing their error. Curious how many homes relied on the road they didn't own. As evening settled, Evan noticed something else. Delivery trucks turning around. A confused utility worker checking his GPS. The sealed gate wasn't just affecting him. And tomorrow, people would start asking questions the HOA couldn't answer. Morning arrived with confusion spreading faster than fog. Residents woke to missed deliveries, delayed services, and blocked access. The HOA president issued a brief email blaming temporary landowner disputes, urging patience. But patience dissolved quickly when emergency services asked about alternate routes. There were none. The development had only one access road, and it ran directly through Evan's land. Evan watched quietly from his porch as cars stopped, reversed, and drivers argued at the roadside. Some recognized him and waved uncertainly. He waved back, calm, almost sympathetic. He wasn't celebrating. He was observing. The HOA finally called him back, their tone polite but strained. They requested an urgent discussion to resolve misunderstandings. Evan agreed, but on his terms. He asked for documentation proving their right to seal his gate. Silence followed. Then excuses. He knew then they hadn't checked anything. They assumed authority would replace legality. Evan requested the seal be removed immediately. The HOA refused, citing internal review. That refusal changed everything. By afternoon, local officials arrived after multiple complaints. They inspected the road, the gate, and the notice. Evan presented his documents calmly, each page adding weight to the situation. Officials exchanged looks that said more than words. The HOA president arrived late. Confident smile fading as the conversation turned technical. Evan said little. He didn't need to. The truth was doing the talking. And it was cornering them. The meeting that followed wasn't loud, but it was heavy. Every sentence carried consequences the HOA couldn't avoid. Officials explained clearly that sealing private access without ownership or easement violated multiple regulations. The HOA president argued confusion, intent, and community need. None of it mattered. Law didn't bend for convenience. Evan finally spoke, his voice steady. He explained how the cabin had existed long before the development, how his family allowed informal access out of goodwill, not obligation. That goodwill ended the moment the gate was sealed. Residents gathered nearby, listening as realization spread. Their homes depended on a road they didn't legally have. No backup. No agreement. Just assumption. The HOA proposed reopening the gate temporarily. Evan declined. He requested formal acknowledgement of ownership, removal of enforcement actions, and a legally binding access agreement. Until then, the gate stayed closed. The officials supported his position. The HOA president's confidence collapsed into urgency. What had begun as control had become exposure. As dusk fell, headlights lined the road, waiting for instructions. Evan returned to his cabin, not triumphant, but grounded. He understood something important now. Silence, when backed by truth, was more powerful than confrontation. Tomorrow would bring negotiations. And the HOA would finally learn the cost of ignoring land that seemed insignificant. Negotiations didn't come quietly, they arrived with lawyers, apologies, and desperation. The HOA requested emergency access agreements, offering compensation and public statements. Evan listened carefully. He didn't rush. He remembered the silence when he first called. The sealed gate. The assumption that power replaced permission. He proposed simple terms: permanent recognition of his ownership, removal of all penalties, and a recorded easement benefiting both sides fairly. No shortcuts. No intimidation. Transparency only. Residents supported him openly now. They realized he wasn't the villain in this story. He was the safeguard they never knew they needed. The HOA board fractured under pressure. Some members resigned. Others apologized publicly. The development learned a hard lesson about expansion without respect. When the agreement was finally signed, the gate reopened, but nothing felt the same. Authority shifted. Respect replaced assumption. Evan didn't celebrate. He maintained the road better than before, not out of obligation, but principle. People waved differently now. Not uncertain. Grateful, yet one final twist remained. Something the HOA hadn't anticipated. Something that would redefine the entire conflict and leave a lasting mark on the community. The final review uncovered more than anyone expected. Records showed the HOA knowingly ignored boundary warnings years earlier. Emails surfaced proving prior awareness of the access issue. The seal wasn't a mistake. It was a gamble. Officials launched further investigations, resulting in fines and mandatory restructuring. The community watched as leadership changed, policies softened, and transparency became unavoidable. Evan was offered a board position. He declined politely. He didn't want control. He wanted peace. The cabin returned to quiet, but its story traveled far. Residents shared it as a reminder that land remembers, even when people forget. Evan walked the road one evening, listening to gravel underfoot. The gate stood open now, not as surrender, but agreement. He smiled slightly, knowing restraint had accomplished what anger never could. The HOA learned that ownership wasn't just paperwork. It was responsibility. And underestimating quiet people often led to loud consequences. Only one thing remained. A final message for everyone watching. The sealed gate became a symbol, not of conflict, but awareness, a reminder that power without understanding always collapses. Evan never sought attention, yet his story spread because it resonated. It wasn't about revenge. It was about standing firm without raising your voice. The HOA continued, changed, and cautious. The road remained shared, protected by agreement, not assumption. And the cabin stood quietly, exactly where it always had. Sometimes the biggest twist isn't a dramatic act. It's patience. It's preparation. It's knowing when to wait while others rush into mistakes. Evan never blocked the road. The HOA blocked themselves. And by doing so, revealed the truth they tried to bury, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.